What's going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I collect multiple vinyl pressings of the same album. Now, this is a rather subjective concept that runs with us vinyl collectors, and we all have our own reasons of doing it. And the way that I go about collecting multiple vinyl pressings of the same album is a bit different in a way that adds more variety and ways that I can experience the albums that I like, which I will explain in this video. So enough with the chit chat, let's jump into what this video is all about. Now, I'm sure for most record collectors, when they started collecting, they had a set of personal collecting rules that they followed that very well may change depending on what they may be seeking out at any given time. And it was that way for me when I started collecting because I was conscious with just getting one playable copy of an album that sounded great to my ears, and that was it. And I stood by that rule for a number of years before I found myself going down the rabbit hole of getting the same album again at times, albeit a different type of pressing. Now, while one may think that it's a maddening concept to rebuy the same album over and over again, they all stand out as variants from a collector's standpoint. And this can be translated differently depending on the collector, because one may collect first British pressings, Japanese pressings, German pressings, and so on and so forth. But in a viewpoint like that, they are more or less rebuying the exact same album, so that aspect of collecting takes away from the musical aspects of vinyl records, unless it's an exceptionally mastered pressing that proves sonic wonders. But luckily, in my defense, I collect multiple copies of the same album that all sound different in their right, and they are all rather unique to each other, and you will see why. Number 1. Stereo versus mono. Now, this is perhaps the most notable factor that can make certain pressings of albums sound different from each other, especially if an album was given both a proper dedicated stereo and mono mix. For example, the Beatles catalog. The mono mixes of their singles and albums were very much the mixes the members of the band cared about more, and the stereo mixes were a bit of an afterthought, and those early stereo mixes are quite radical sounding compared to today's standards, with the vocals being panned on one side and the instrumentation being panned on the other. So what can be fascinating with these mix differences is that various different vocal takes can be used, different effects, extra instrumentation, things of that sort. So depending on what mix you listen to, differences may appear that may sound different compared to what you're used to. Some of the other notable albums in my collection that were given both the proper stereo and mono treatment were some of the early Doors albums. We got the self-titled debut. This is the 50th anniversary deluxe set, as well as Strange Days. Same can also be said with the Jimi Hendrix Experience. This is my favorite album of theirs, Axis Bold as Love. Got both a stereo and a mono mix. And the same can be said with the first two Pink Floyd albums. These are the Record Store Day pressings that came out in recent years, with Piper at the Gates of Dawn and A Saucer Full of Secrets. Number 2, stereo remixes. Now, these are the kind of pressings that I have a lot of, and this is a trend we are seeing more lately, with anniversaries of albums occurring and there being lavish anniversary releases and box sets. And one of the things that's done quite often is that a remix producer, such as Steven Wilson or whoever, will take the multi-tracks of an album and give it a remix, whether it be in stereo or sometimes 5.1, to give the album a bit of a fresh appearance. Now, to touch on the Beatles again, recently they have done 50th anniversary releases for Sgt. Pepper, The White Album, and Abbey Road, and they come with the main album remixed by Giles Martin, who is the son of producer George Martin, and it also comes with extra material, whether it be studio outtakes or demos. And when you factor in the original stereo and mono mixes, and you include the new remixes, that is up to 3 different versions of the same album. And some other cases of stereo remixes are the King Crimson catalog. Steven Wilson has been doing remixes of the Crimson stuff for a number of years, and they put out these black box sets. This one is the 72 to 74 box. I also have the 69 to 72 box, and these box sets feature the albums that were released within that respective era, remixed by Steven Wilson, and they also feature some studio and live material as well. So these box sets are definitely insightful when it comes down to the audio content. And he basically did the exact same thing for Yes. He remixed the Yes albums from 71 to 74, and there is this vinyl box set, which is the very aptly titled Steven Wilson Remixes. The David Bowie estate has also been doing remixes as well to coincide with the 50th anniversary of his albums, and so far we have got remixes of Space Oddity and The Man Who Sold the World. The Ramones catalog has also been given 40th anniversary treatments, and the deluxe editions that have come out feature a new remix of the respected album, both on CD and vinyl. And last, we have my favorite band, Kiss Destroyer, which got a remix and was released as Destroyer Resurrected. Number 3. Unique mixes. Now, this can somewhat merge with stereo versus mono and stereo remixes, but for the reasons that I will explain, they very much stand out in their own right. First, starting off with the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. When this album came out in 1966, the only mix that was done was the mono mix, and any stereo versions were the duophonic / fake stereo versions, where basically they took the mono mix, put the treble on one side and the bass on the other. And in 1996, when the Pet Sounds Sessions box set came out, the album was given its first proper stereo mix, and subsequent vinyl pressings in stereo have used that stereo mix. And then we also have the self-titled debut album of the Ramones, and obviously it was only mixed in stereo when it came out, but the stereo mix was very reminiscent of the old ways that stereo mixes were approached, where let's say you had bass in one speaker and guitar in the other. So for the 40th anniversary in 2016, they kind of went backwards and did a new mono mix of the album, which in all honesty is the definitive way to hear this album, because the arrangements are so stripped down and to the core that getting it concise in the mono format just works so well. Number 4. Folddowns. Now, this is kind of niche, and I don't have too many pressings to show for this, but it goes to show that they do exist. And featured in the Super Deluxe box set of Black Sabbath's Paranoid, it features the quad in stereo version of the album. So basically, they took the 1974 quadraphonic mix of the album, which has 4 channels for a 4-speaker configuration, and folded it down to stereo. And this same kind of method can be also applied to a mono mix, where let's just say they take a stereo mix and they fold it down to mono. And when you listen to this quad in stereo mix, it's very interesting, because down to how the quad version was mixed, certain elements of the mix are more prominent than others. So extra reverb is added to the vocals to provide a bit more air. So it kind of sounds more like an uneven rough mix than a basic fold down, but nonetheless, it is a very interesting way to hear the album. Number 5. Country variants. Now, my rule for buying multiple copies of an album from different countries is that they have to have something really going for them in order for me to get them. And that could be anything from the track list or the artwork. And lately, I have been seeing myself getting more of these kind of pressings in, because they are certainly very interesting copies to own alongside other more familiar copies. First up, we have Yes's Time and Word. This right here is the traditional international version. Original artwork, track list, and all. And then the other copy that I have of this album is the German version. And as you can see, the album cover is completely different, which, side note, Atlantic in the US used this cover photo for the first Yes album, which got released in the States, but they went ahead and used it for the German version of Time and Word. And as you can see, the back cover is rather different as well. And the album itself is a bit different too, because alternate mixes for the songs No Opportunity Necessary and Sweet Dreams are used. And the song Dear Father, which is a much-loved single B-side from the band, substitutes the song The Prophet, which can be found on the international version. So this is definitely a very interesting copy to own. And next up is Led Zeppelin 2, and of course, this is the copy that we all know and love. And then I also have this rather interesting Turkish version, which, as you can tell, features completely different artwork that was exclusively done by a Turkish artist from the country, as well as a rather cool-looking back cover. And to draw even more attention to it, as you can see there, it is in mono. Now, Led Zeppelin 2 was never given a proper mono mix. Any mono mix that exists is simply a fold down, but still, this is a rather interesting version to own. And last but not least, we have the self-titled debut from Black Sabbath. And as you can see here, this is the UK version, which from an artwork standpoint, comes with the gatefold sleeve, which features the inverted cross that the band wasn't too happy about. And on the track list, their first single, Evil Woman, opens up side 2. And then I also have the American version, which comes in a single sleeve. It does not include a gatefold, but the first track on side 2 is Wicked World, which was actually the B-side to the Evil Woman single. And this whole time I have been talking about albums, but I do want to briefly mention 7-inch singles, and I more or less bought this specific variant on impulse, but coincidentally, it has enough going for it for me to buy it up again. And that is the Shout It Out Loud single by Kiss, and I had already owned the Japanese version, which came as part of the Casablanca singles box set, which, as you can see, features the picture sleeve and the Japanese writing on the back. And they did a 45th anniversary pressing of the single, which uses the same metal parts from the box set. But as you can see, this is the artwork that was featured in Denmark. And it also comes pressed on very nice marbled orange vinyl. So those right there are the main examples as to why I collect multiple vinyl pressings of the same album. Now here is a question for you. Do you collect multiple pressings of the same album? What are your rules? What do you usually seek? Please shoot me a comment down below. I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel, be sure to check me out on Patreon. See you guys in the next video. And most importantly, keep the records spinning.